can remember going to my niece's very first music recital in which she had her first solo performance. I can remember sitting in the audience, anxious, nervous for her, waiting for her to hit the stage because she had been practicing for weeks at this point. So when they called her name and she got to the stage, she walked up to the mic and she froze. Nothing came out. You could hear the music playing in the background. The melody began to play. Brown skin girl, your skin just like pearls, the best thing in the world. I never trade you for anybody else. Brown skin girl. But nothing. A severe case of stage fright. So I did what any concerned auntie would do. I yelled, "That's all right, baby, take your time. Take your time." And just like that, she began to sing. And 3 minutes and 40-some seconds later, she was done. So with a little help from the audience and auntie, of course, my baby got through her first solo performance. You know, I'm good at that. I'm good at helping people when I know they need encouragement. I'm good at giving people a push when I can feel that they're struggling, or giving people a break when I can see that they need one. It's because I know what it feels like to need a break. I know what it feels like to be afraid. I know what it feels like to just need someone to say, "It's okay, I got you." Because my life has not been easy. Everyone in this room knows what it feels like to struggle. And I'm sure we know at least one person that has had a difficult life. And sometimes they make the difficulties in their life their entire personality. It seems like it's all they know to talk about. Those people that have made what they've gone through their entire personality, those people that always need something, we know at least one person. Those people. I am those people. Young Steve. My mother lost custody of my brother and I before I was even 1 year old. So off to foster care we went. In our first foster home, we were placed with an elderly couple who showered us with love, affection. They provided us with a sense of safety and security. You know, all the things you don't realize you need as a child, but you benefit from later. Everything was perfect. That was until tragedy struck. And they died within what felt like 6 months apart. I was 6 years old. So my brother and I were then placed into our second foster home. But we were placed with a relative of our first foster parents. So it was a familiar family. But in this foster home, there was no love. There was no sense of safety, no sense of belonging. In this foster home, my brother and I were marked as those foster children. There was no sense of belonging for us. So for the next 13 years, my brother and I were forced to share one identity as those foster children. That was until he turned 16 and he decided that he had had enough and he emancipated himself. Although I was happy for him, that meant that I was now going to be responsible for carrying and holding this identity alone. I didn't know if I could do it. So I did the only thing I knew to do, which was to strap up and hold on tight. So what was meant for an identity for both of us to share now became just my burden to carry. Just me. So throughout my childhood, my teenage years, and most of my early adulthood, I held on tight to this identity that belonged to me. It was the only thing I had. It became a crutch, a coping skill, and a lifeline depending on the day. It was the only thing I knew to use when I needed to get my needs met. It was my introduction to myself in any setting. If I had a job interview and they asked me, so tell me about yourself, I said, hi, my name is Soncheray and I grew up in the foster care system. During my college admissions interviews when they asked me, so tell us about yourself and why you want to attend this prestigious university, I always answer the same way. Hi, my name is Soncheray and I grew up in foster care. I can remember I wanted to study abroad my last year of undergrad. And I came up short a couple dollars. Okay, $2,000, but who's counting? So I did what I always did. I marched into the dean's office with my bag of burdens. And I said, hi, my name is Soncheray and I grew up in foster care. 2 weeks later, I was on a plane headed to Africa. So it worked. It always worked. It was the only thing I knew to get my needs met. Because let's be honest, I didn't have a line of people wrapped around the corner waiting to meet my needs. Nobody was asking me, what can I do for you today, Soncheray? It always worked and I wasn't going to let it go. It was mine. And why fix what's not broken? Why fix what's not broken? You know, this strategy became less and less effective as I aged out of foster care and into adulthood. So what was once a great story to tell in every job interview and every new person that I encountered that wanted to get to know me, it felt like it became repellent to people because what I thought was building connection was actually putting a burden onto them and making them want to stay away from me. But because the truth is that when you become an adult, no one really cares about how hard your life is. No one. But the reality that I have been dealt these cards, and it was my job to play this hand, it was my job to reshuffle this deck as many times as I needed to, that didn't sit right with me because I didn't ask to be here. It wasn't fair. So I wasn't ready to make the necessary adjustments. I was going to hold on to my bag of burdens because it always worked for me. That was until I met a man. This man, I somehow trauma bonded myself into a relationship with this person. I don't know how I did that because we don't trauma bond, right? So somehow I ended up in a relationship with a man who had just as much baggage as me, if not more. And I can remember I would always be so frustrated with him. Always frustrated with him. Why can't he just get out of his own way? Why can't he just stop blaming people for his problems? Why can't he just? And it wasn't until I looked at him one day and I saw myself, and it scared me. And I thought, so if I am looking at him that way, is this how people see me? Am I the drama? Am I the drama? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So at that point, the light bulb went off and I knew I needed to make a change. So I started leading with things that were important to me, like kindness and integrity, and not integrity because no one kept their promises to me in life. No, but because I like the way it feels to do what I say I'm going to do. I like the way it feels to keep my word. Another thing I did was work on shifting my perspective. So when I look back on my story, I chose to rewrite the script for myself. So I chose to view myself through the lens of the now thriving adult that I was, and not the anxious child / victim that I was. the now thriving adult and not the anxious child that I used to be. So I made the conscious choice to view my life that way. And I chose to view the people that I felt victimized me through their eyes. What was their age at that time? What were their life circumstances at that time? What was their maturity level at that time? Because I've been 21 before, I've been 25. So this is not about making excuses for them, but it's about making space for a perspective that where you're not the victim, where you can be a part of your story, just a character, just like everybody else, and not the drama, okay? So as a clinical therapist, I run into patients all the time that struggle to detach from their trauma. And I always ask them this $1 million question where I ask, how do you know that you wouldn't be this version of yourself, this motivated version of you, this smart version of you? How do you know you wouldn't be this version of yourself without those experiences? How do you know for sure? We don't. But what you do know is that you can choose your perspective. Absolutely. You can choose the way you narrate your story. So, in reflection, I become her. I become the auntie and the audience of my own story. The auntie that cheers myself on when I feel afraid. The auntie that gives myself that push when I need it, so that I can sing. Brown skin girl, your skin just like pearls, the best thing in the world. I never change her for anybody else. Brown skin girl, yeah, another one. My brother and I. Thank you.